Hello and welcome to Unclecthulu Reviews. Today I'm going to talk about Wargames magazines and what they've done for wargaming over the years. Certainly from my first experience of wargaming in the late 80s to what we have now. Now, my first magazines I bought were in 1988, so that was White Dwarf 120, Wargames Illustrated 24 were my first sort of proper Wargames magazines I spent myself. Now, talk about White Dwarf separately, but certainly Wargames Illustrated. I also got miniature wargames alongside it as well. Were vital to the hobby back then because a lot more the hobby was mail order and we didn't have the internet. So I lived in a small town. I was a teenager. I couldn't really travel to any designated wargaming shops, and getting to the conventions were actually really difficult. So that was my link to wargaming. The interesting about it was about a third of the magazine was black and white listings of companies and their new releases that they were putting out. Certainly you were lucky if there was any sort of pictures. I think I looked back at some Wargames Illustrated recently, and in '88 they're talking about starting to do coloured adverts. So there was no pictures. Occasionally you'd have a line drawn of some miniatures, but actually a lot of the time you're sending off a stamped addressed envelope for full listings, and often it was potluck on the quality of the models you got back. And I suppose that's why the articles were so important, because you could actually see the miniatures in the flesh if, like me, you weren't fortunate enough to be able to get out to the broader wargaming world and see things in the flesh. And actually a lot of the war games articles back then were about playing games, and then a trend started to happen where a lot of war games magazines published a lot of history, which I found really off-putting in a war games magazine. Personally, I love history, but actually if I want to read about a conflict and the deeper history of it, well, don't devote 2 or 3 pages of your magazine article to it, then give me like 1 page of how to refight the battle. Give us a part of history, maybe tell us where to find out more information, then give us the stuff about miniatures. So it's almost like, for a long time, miniatures were set dressings to people's history. Fortunately, in later years, this has all changed. Now, one of the big changes to print magazines has been the internet, and I can now go online and in the course of 5 minutes see all the manufacturers I want to see, check out what they want. Hopefully they've got good pictures of the models they're trying to sell us on the website. Another big bugbear for internet and wargaming is, if you're going to have internet and you're going to have pictures of models on them, make them good pictures, make me want to buy them. But anyway, so I've got a few magazines here. So in the way back when, I always found Wargames Illustrated the kind of highbrow end of. This was always the elite magazine, and it's still a great magazine. You know, I'm going to do some actual reviews about the Wargames magazines and what they offer individually themselves. But when you look through, it's full colour. It's often linked. Wargames Illustrated is often kind of more linked to our manufacturer than miniature war games, but certainly in the past, that was my first one I bought. It wasn't my go-to. The magazine I adored when I was younger was Miniature War Games. It was my magazine. I remember issue 100, which was a great, massive, bulky one, and the difference for me was Miniature War Games always felt like it was achievable, the hobby and stuff they were showing off, whereas Wargames Illustrated just was, for me, unachievable paint jobs and stuff, and miniature wargames felt a bit more down to earth. These days I don't really buy miniature wargames. I just don't engage with it as much as, say, Wargames Illustrated. I can't really put a finger on it. I might be able to put a finger on it when I do an individual review about it. And certainly this is Miniature Wargames. I loved it when Ian Dickey was the editor, and it's gone through a few editors lately and it's trying to find its feet. Now, my favourite Wargames magazine that's come on the market, which I buy every issue, is Wargames Strategy and Soldiers. I really like it. It's, for me, this is what Wargames magazines need to be to survive in the internet age. So it's going to have a strong theme every month. It's going to talk about the miniatures you can get to replay those games. But actually it's got, I suppose, regular feature columns from Andy Clark, Rick Priestley, and it's really high quality sharing of ideas and talking about wargaming rather than talking about the history of the wargaming. And actually the review sections for Wargame Strategy Soldiers is really good as well. So yeah, and I've been quoted, I wrote a letter to Guy Bowers, the editor, once, and he mentioned me in an editorial, so that's really good. Well, really exciting. So yeah, so I think that's one of the interesting things is what Wargames magazines. I won't talk about White Dwarf today. I'll talk about White Dwarf another day. So what's interesting about historical Wargames magazines is to survive, they're now having to push beyond the print medium. So certainly Wargames Illustrated does their Prime membership, which I've recently picked up and enjoyed going back through the vault and back all through all the back issues and having a digital copy as well as my print copy subscription. And they also do a whole load of videos. They do a lot more review videos than I was aware of until relatively recently. I recently found out War Games, Soldiers and Strategies are up to about 20 on a podcast. That was really cool, really entertaining. Because I'm not really reading miniature war games, I haven't really looked at what they're doing above and beyond the print medium. But yeah, I think that it's vital that we have historical wargames magazines. The visibility they give you to the hobby in, say, W. H. Smith's, certainly when I went up to high school for my look around day before I went, I saw one of the older kids walking through the corridor with their copy of miniature Wargames Illustrated, I think it was, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. There's going to be people like me about. Certainly they've got some sort of met up a family do at the weekend, and there were some cousins, and I passed on some of the magazines that were sitting in my bag for their kids to look at and read. And even though I don't really keep my Wargames magazines, moved house too many times, I have big piles of magazines, so I'm more than happy to just pass them on to people who are interested and hopefully shine a torch and illuminate their way into gaming if they want it. So, and I think that's the real beauty of it. The internet is dark and full of terrors. The internet's dark and full of opinions, and it's not always the most welcoming to new hobbyists. You know, you get something like a magazine, it's often just giving you information that you can engage with. I mean, there'll be a slight editorial tone or slant, but it's giving you an unbiased view of the hobby that you could dip into or dip out of at your leisure. And like I say, I've had 30 years of buying Wargames magazines. I hate to think how much money I've spent on White Dwarfs, Miniature Wargames, Wargames Soldiers Strategy, Wargames Illustrated, and a couple of others over the years, like Practical Wargamer, which I really liked at the time. But yeah, so I hope Wargames magazines stay. I think they're a good thing, a beneficial thing. I like having them in my bag. Maybe I'm a bit old school, maybe give it 10 years where everything's done on tablets and phones. I might feel differently, but I like having them in my bag. If I've got a spare 5-10 minutes, I like pulling them out, having a wee look at an article. Don't have to worry about whether I've got Wi-Fi or not. And it's just all there and ready to go. And like I say, a couple of times I've written to editors. I've been mentioned in it, so I feel a connection to it. So yes, that's my thoughts on Wargames magazines and where they sit in the world at the moment. I'd love to hear what you think about it. My plans are to do a couple of follow-ups talking about the individual magazines, maybe it's a 5-minute splash talking about what they offer, their tone and what might suit you. But yes, hopefully the sound has been good. There's a storm raging outside. And look forward to hearing what you think about Wargames magazines. So that's bye for now, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.